day. Excellent. Well, we're not done yet. I hope you all enjoyed your afternoon refreshment break sponsored by the Leadership Circle, and that you've enjoyed your lunch and all the other things that have gone on throughout the day. So now it is time to introduce our closing keynote speaker and discoveries from nearly 3 decades of adventures in the coaching world. Please welcome Chalmers Brothers.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Remember the keynote conversation we had with Renee this morning? We're going to do the same thing. We have our cozy chairs set up, and I would like to collect your cards earlier. So by, say, 4:15 to 4:30, you'll be seeing some volunteers roaming these 2 aisles. Please pass your cards over to this aisle or that aisle. They'll collect them, bring them up to me, and we'll have a chance to sort them and get to more of them in the keynote conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Carol. It's great to be here. What are some of the most important discoveries you have made in your own journey of coaching? And what are some of the most important discoveries that you're seeking to help your clients make for themselves? We know as coaches, do we not, early, the power of questions. I invite you to listen with these 2 questions in the background today. The most important things you have discovered in your journey becoming a coach and being a coach, and the most important things you're seeking to help your clients discover for themselves. I believe many of us are on a similar path, and as I share with you some of my experience here, I believe I will be reminding you of what you already know. In these instances, my intent is to remind you or reintroduce you to what you indeed already have discovered, and do so in such a way that you can more purposefully, more consciously apply it in your life, and possibly more purposefully, more effectively bring it with you in your service of your clients. A little history. I was introduced to the world of coaching 27 years ago when my wife and I attended a weekend workshop in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And 2 things happened to me in that weekend. 2 discoveries. Number 1, I thought my relationship with my wife was a 9.5 out of 10. I discovered it's a 9.5 if 10 is right here. But what if there is no 10? What if I had artificially and dramatically limited the single most important relationship of my life and had been unaware that I was doing that? And second, I found out I had a huge amount in common with a 73-year-old African-American grandmother. And at that point in my life, I didn't know that. I didn't understand that. And having the terminal certainty with which I was holding those 2 things loosened, having a crack inserted, had me ask another question. And the question was, maybe there are other things about my life, about other people, about how things are, that maybe I don't need to hold quite so tightly. And that led me ultimately to the Newfield Network in 1995 when I got my coaching certification. I'd spent 9 years with Anderson Consulting, which is now called Accenture, so I had that in my background. As I had left Anderson, after my time at Newfield, I began simply making a new offer to my independent clients. If they wanted me for a 2-day strategic planning workshop, I said, okay, I'll do your workshop, but you got to give me a half a day up front where I do what I want to do. And gradually, the half a day up front where I do what I want to do became all that I'm doing. And ultimately, as I was doing this is in 96, 97, 98, in these workshops, people would ask me, where can I get a book about this stuff? My response always was, well, obviously, I'm not smart enough to write the book, and the people who taught me should write the book. The guys who taught me should be the ones. Gradually, over time, the questions changed to, why don't you write the book? Now, I begin to have a question. It appears that I'm the only one around here who thinks I can't write this book. And the cobbler has no shoes. Here I am in the business of helping people move past unpowerful beliefs. And I had a Buddha moment, laughed in the mirror. Oh my God, boom. About that same time, something else happened. I was walking past the TV, and on MTV, a song came on. I did not like the song. I didn't like the vibe. I didn't like it at all. But something hit me, and it was like, I don't like this, but he's saying what he wants to say. When do I get to do that? With me? When do I get to say what I want to say? And I started typing that night. And it was 6 years, and the book came out in 2005, and I've been gratified and thrilled. My terror was that I would not be able to put on paper something that had already been so profoundly important and powerful for me and a lot of other people already, that I wouldn't be able to do it justice. I wouldn't be able to capture it in such a way that it would be understandable. But I'm super thrilled. I'm super thrilled. One of the first things I learned in coaching, once I was in it, I now call the big I. You taking a look at you, your clients taking a look at themselves, me taking a look at me. Everything starts with self-awareness, becoming a more powerful and a more competent observer of yourself. And this focus on self-awareness, obviously, we know this as coaches, is so important because of some basic claims. Number one, you cannot change another human being. Who's tried? Who's married, by the way? I love my wife. But she cannot change me. She can influence me. But I can change me. But I can't change what I don't notice. You can't change what you don't notice. Now, you may notice and choose not to change. Great. Now you got your eyes open. But you don't notice, you don't get to do squat. Second basic claim, and Brene pointed to this, we are not hermits. We do what we do already with and through people. In her words, we are hardwired for connectivity. Your clients, they do, even if they're not working with you explicitly in the domain of relationship, guess what? The domain of relationship is there. How many of you know people with deep technical skills, deep functional skills, and who are utterly ineffective as a leader? Utterly ineffective in their own personal life. Folks, those skills are the price of entry. That's the cost of admission. Something about how you dance with people matters, and it matters a lot. Third basic claim, if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. You want to produce a new result? We have to take a new action. And folks, many of the actions that we need to take and that we're seeking to help our clients take, many of those actions have nothing to do with our arms and legs. They're not physical, but they're real. And those actions we will talk about today. Fourth basic claim, we are always at choice. We are choosing every moment. You are choosing right now, as am I. Example, is it possible for us to spend this hour together and for you to choose to not learn anything? Is that available to you as a choice? I promise you that is immediately and utterly available to you as a choice in this moment. I've been in those chairs. How do you exercise that choice? You do your to-do list in your head. You think about something else. It's a choice. Folks, I got 3 kids, ages 22, 20, and 17. Who here has kids? All right, excellent. Depending on the ages of our kids, have we not said our version of this to them? Pay attention to your choices. Because your life is going to unfold as it unfolds, largely out of the choices that you make. And back to the big I, guess what? Many of us are horrible observers of the choices that we have. As a coach, is it not explicitly on our agenda to help our clients see more choices after they're with us than before? Guys, think of it. Every single time in your life things were screwed up, you were there. All right. We are each the common denominator of our own stuff. I'm the one that keeps showing up again in this picture. It's me. Now, the basic claim, how you see things matters, and it matters a lot. And my friend Jim and I may see things very differently, and guess what? That difference has nothing to do with our retinas. It's a metaphor. With me? We use that expression, I don't see it that way, but we're not talking biological differences. Something else is going on. How many of us know people, the way they see a problem or a situation is itself a big part of the problem? The way that they framed it, not with 2x4s, there's something else going on, but the way that they framed it has shrunk the horizon of possibilities down to a little teeny horizon of possibilities. Folks, as a coach and as an individual, I'm going to say it's not enough for us to become more powerful and more competent observers of ourselves. It's also key that we become a more powerful observer of the way we observe. To take a look at how you look at things. So that can at least be one of the universe set of variables that are on the table that you get to explore should you decide you want to produce a new result. And I'm going to say it this way. The ability to do that, to look at how you look at things, is not one incremental step up from not being able to do that. It's an ocean. You with me? It is a substantial shift in awareness to be able to help your clients do that. Another basic claim, change is permanent, so get used to it. For us, for our clients, how you think about change, navigate change, everything we do in already a context of ongoing change. So folks, I invite you to consider, as a context for coaching, something like this has served me well. Right? The notion of becoming a more powerful observer behind everything else. In the background, behind everything else. This increasing our capacity for self-awareness. Another major discovery in my journey of coaching is the whole notion of paradigms. Floored me. In layman's terms, non-gobbledygook language, what is the paradigm? A model, a mental model, not a physical model, mental model. A belief system, absolutely. A framework, a conceptual construct. Do we and our clients operate with paradigms right now? Yes. Do our paradigms right now impact our results right now? Yes. Not only do they influence the actions we take, they influence what we even see as possible to choose from to take in the first place. So folks, given the fact that we and our clients operate ongoingly with paradigms, how can paradigms be anything but good? How can they be anything but good? Because we need them. Absolutely. Our paradigms can go from a way of thinking, believing, and taking action to the only way of thinking, believing, which dramatically limits our possibilities. All of my work for the past 27 years is based on a paradigm, a particular way of understanding. It goes like this. Ask a room full of people, what is language? What is language for? What will the gigantic majority answer with? I promise you, a tool for communication or some variation of this. Folks, that is such a widely held paradigm or way of understanding that most people don't see it as a paradigm at all. They see it as a definition, as a fact, as the truth about language. I offer this. If language is a tool, it's a tool you cannot put down. It's not like all the other tools. It's the one we need for every single other one. And when we look a little bit deeper, we can see that we're doing a great deal more with our language than describe or communicate. Key discovery in my life. Language creates and generates, it does not simply describe. Examples. Think about every single time in your life you ever said the word yes. Every time. Here's the question. If all those times you had said no, would your life be different? You wouldn't be in this room. The simple act of saying yes, these doors open, these doors close, and vice versa. And we know this. One of my favorite stories about how language creates is a baseball story. Two umpires sitting around talking. The first one said, you know, Joe is a fabulous umpire. There's balls and there's strikes. Calls them like they are. The second umpire said, no, no, no. Joe is a great umpire. There's balls and there's strikes, but he calls them like he sees them. And Joe walked up and said, y'all both wrong. He said, there's balls and there's strikes, but they ain't nothing till I call them. When he says strike three, it is strike three. This is for everyone in this room who is married or has ever been married. A simple question. Is it different being married than not being married? I was with an older guy one time and said, you know, it's been so long I can't remember, right? Yes, it's different. It's different legally, it's different socially, it's different sexually, it's different emotionally, it's different financially, it's different. So the question, how do we go from being not married to being married? How'd that happen? Somebody said something. Or I woke up in the trunk and there I was, right? No, I'm teasing. No, somebody said something. Folks, we speak ourselves into the world. We speak ourselves into the world. And it's not trivial. How was the United States of America created? What is there in the archives just up the road in Washington, D.C., under the glass, right next to the Constitution? This country was declared into being. Now, there was work to do after that, yes, but without the Declaration, doesn't happen. Does not happen. Think about all the companies represented in this room and all the companies represented by your clients. How were all of those organizations created? I want to offer they were also declared into being, and somewhere in the file cabinet you can find it. We hereby shareholders declare Par 100 ABC, August 1st the company does not exist, August 2nd it does. I'm not saying we don't describe with language. What I'm saying is that is not all that we do. And it's this whole other, not all that we do, that for us as individuals and obviously for us as coaches, that's important to take a look at. Leaders get paid to have effective conversations. Can you be a strong leader without the ability to lift 100 pounds over your head? Can you be a powerful leader from a wheelchair? Yes, of course. We have historical examples all over the place. Leaders create and ongoingly cultivate this non-physical but very real and very powerful thing we call culture, not with shovels and fertilizer, but with the conversations they have, the conversations they require, and the conversations they prohibit. Those conversations shape and impact the culture every bit as much as the culture influences the conversations. Causality is two-way. You guys heard this expression, culture eats strategy for breakfast? It does. No matter how well thought out or sound or logical your strategy is, your culture will eat it. And the culture has everything to do with the network of commitments that the organization is. Guys, be with me. Every single organization I'm aware of, big, small, simple, complex, can be understood at a foundational level as a network of commitments. Human beings making and managing promises. Big ones, little ones, boardroom, bathroom, phone, email. Those conversations collectively create products and services. And they dramatically shape this non-physical but very real thing we call culture. When you understand your organization and help your clients see their organization as a network of commitments, a network of conversations, avenues for intervening pop into view that do not pop into view if you don't see it that way. It's a powerful way of understanding collaborative action. Big C, big A, right? At the broadest possible level, collaborative action. On the personal side, think about a relationship you have, close, excellent, wonderful relationship. Your conversations with this person are creating the experience of intimacy, generating the space of authenticity and vulnerability that Brene talked about, not describing it. You change your conversations with this person, and you change your relationship. We know this. What's the action we take when we want to end a relationship with somebody? What do? We defriend them on Facebook, right? We stop talking to them. And that ends it because that's what it is. Most of our relationships are not physical and they are not sexual. They are conversational. There was a wonderful poet named David White. Our conversations are not about the relationship. Our conversations are the relationship. We know this. Back to the wedding. Is there not a moment at most weddings when the person doing the ceremony says some version of this? Anyone here think that so-and-so and so-and-so should not be married? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Here's my promise. You stand up in that moment and you scream, I object. You are not describing, you are creating. What are you creating? Chaos, a crisis. You're also creating a brand new relationship with the groom. Think about it. And you're creating a brand spanking new public identity for yourself. For all the other non-hermits who got to witness that, who you, quote unquote, are, has now and forevermore shifted. It's shifted in language. It's not physical, but it's real. Another example. Think about an argument you had with somebody ever in your life. Back when you were a kid, when you were a young adult, last night, doesn't matter. Any argument you ever had with someone. It's not a good argument. It escalates. It's bad. It's not a good situation. But at some point you do separate. You do calm down, have a glass of water. As you're calming down, this thought slowly trickles into your mind. You know, as I think about it now, I actually wish I hadn't said that. Has anybody ever had this experience ever in your life? Welcome to a big club called All of Us. So, regardless of the content of the argument, why do we ever think, I wish I hadn't said that? Because I created a result back there, and now I say it's not the result I wanted to create. I didn't just describe. A diminishment in possibilities is a result. A shift in context is a result. A change in the nature of an important relationship is a result, are they not? They're not physical, but they're utterly real. One final example. We live in a time of ongoing change, do we not? Yes. Given that, scale of 1 to 10, how important is learning for you as an individual? 10. How important is learning for your clients and their organizations? 10. One of my favorite prerequisites for learning, regardless of subject matter, learning to ride a bike, learning to repair a relationship, learning to run a company. Everyone in this room has been a teacher and a learner in your life. I know that. What are some prerequisites for learning, independent of subject matter? Curiosity, absolutely. Willingness, readiness, wonderful. I'm sorry? Absolutely. Openness as well. Listening. I'm sorry? Practice. Absolutely, practice. Learning about is not the same as learning to do.
Willingness to unlearn.
Willingness to unlearn, key. This is where I'm going. I want to offer this. In addition to these, one of the most powerful prerequisites for learning I've ever encountered is when the learner says, either internally or out loud, I don't know. In this way of thinking, I don't know does not describe a state of affairs. It produces something. What it produces is called a context for learning. Everything else being the same. Same teacher, same physical environment, same everything. When the learner says, I don't know, poof, out of nothing, now something is different. Qualitatively, subjectively different. The first 9 years of my professional career were at a large consulting organization. My internal conversation was, it is absolutely not okay to not know. And when I started there, nobody said, Chalmers, to be successful here, it's crucial that you never ever publicly acknowledge areas of not knowing. No one told me that. But by the time I'd spent enough time there, I'd seen enough. It was not okay to not know. And I promise you, I'm having a conversation around a table, and this is some of my internal conversations. Please, God, do not let them ask me a question. I promise you, you get me out of this meeting, I'll start going to church. I'll be a much better man. Right? And I finally said, you know, Jim, on the beta test, I think I need a little more information. I don't really understand exactly enough to do. Then someone else said, you know, I could also use a bit more clarification. And you could feel the meeting get real. Anybody have a meeting like this? Who here has a good BS detector? We all do. We're not that slick. We're not that slick. It's powerful to begin to notice in your workplace, is it okay for people to say, I don't know? This is a culture question, is it not? Now, I don't know, and I'll find out by Tuesday. Now it's Wednesday. Different thing. That's a commitment. I'm talking the first time it raises its head. Because if one of your desired results is a culture of innovation and creativity, and you slap people's hands who say, I don't know, I'm going to say you're going to have a hard time achieving that result. Those are incompatible. On the personal side, I don't know, I invite you to look at it this way. Given the age that you are now, whatever age that is, and given the level you've achieved organizationally, whatever level that is, do you give yourself permission to be a beginner at anything? Because you declare beginnerhood into being, do you not? You speak it so like the umpire. Now, folks, if language is only a passive tool for communication or describing how things are, the last 11 minutes of our conversation make very little sense. But if language also has a generative and creative side, I'm going to say it's worth paying attention to. Another key discovery in my journey about language is this. We live in language. We live in language. This expression, we live in language, what does it mean? I like to frame it this way. Who in this room has the little voice inside? The one that says, what's he talking about? That's what I'm talking about. Who has a debate team? One of my favorite quotes of all time, some of you guys may know this quote, is Mark Twain. He said, I'm always in conversation, and sometimes other people are involved. And it's not just Mark Twain, it's us. It is all of us. Please pretend with me for a moment. I'm a lion on the savannah in Africa. I'm preparing to attack a zebra. I see the zebra I want. It's a slow zebra toward the back of the herd. Over here are the other male lions wishing it was their turn to hunt. Over here are the lionesses all checking me out. Preparing to take a running leap. Just as I leap, I hit a hidden stump in the grass, and boogity-boom, down I go in a cloud of dust. I get up thinking, I should have never had that antelope last night. I knew it was too filling. I knew today was my day to hunt. I'll never be king, not with this on my resume. Look at her laughing. My date for Saturday night is shot. This is the worst day of my life. I'm humiliated. May have to even join a new pride. Question. Does a lion do that? Doesn't appear to. We do that. We do exactly that. Here it is in a nutshell. Me and everybody I know and ever will know, and you and everybody you know and ever will know, we are confronted with events. Events at home, events at work, events in the car, events at the client, events with our kids, events in the shower. And what we do as a human being, we make up stories about these events, we hold these stories to be the truth, and we forget that we made them up. Now, folks, when I say story, I don't mean fib or fabrication. It's not a purposeful manipulation. It's not a self-deception. It's an explanation. An interpretation. Another key discovery in my coaching journey is in the form of a distinction. Event is not equal explanation. Fundamental distinction to possess. One example. Let's say you're a parent. Your high school sophomore comes home mid-semester, looks you in the eye and says, I'm stupid. What are you talking about? I'm stupid. What are you talking about? I got an F on my English test. In this little example, what's the event? F on the test. What's the explanation? I'm stupid. Question, if that kid lives in that conversation long enough, is that a descriptive thing or a creative thing? That's a creative thing. And let's back up from the F and the test and think more broadly. Is it the events of your life or your explanations about those events that are more influential as to the actual actions you end up taking in the world? The explanations. And out of the actual actions we take in the world, we produce something called results in the world, do we not? Yes. And the explanation is the springboard, not the event. Out of any given event, how many possible explanations are there? Infinite. Folks, here's what happened to me when I was first taught this. Here's where I went. Okay, I'm doing it. I am Mark Twain. I'm doing it. I am making up explanations out of the events that occur in my life. I'm taking action, of course, based on those explanations, and whatever results I produce are themselves based on those actions. I get it, I'm doing it. But you know what? Explanations are either right or wrong, and mine are generally right. I want to invite you not to do that. I want to invite you not to throw the right-wrong scaffolding on top of your explanations. How about a different scaffolding, a different orientation, a different approach? How about powerful, unpowerful? It looks like this. Is your explanation or your client's explanation, is it powerful or unpowerful given the results you say you want? Does it serve you or not serve you given what you say you want to be, do, or have in this relationship, in this situation? Always with the tagline, always given the result you say you want, never in a vacuum. Because we're doing this already anyway. That's not in doubt. We are Mark Twain. The only question is back to the big I, self-awareness. Do we see ourselves as doing it? That's the only question. How many of you know people who do not see themselves as doing this? It looks like this. Bob, that is not my interpretation of what happened at the board meeting. That is what happened at the board meeting. Folks, I've been here today. I got to meet a lot of people. It's obvious to me how each of you are necessarily influenced by your age, your race, your sex, your degree of travel or non-travel, your cultural, educational, and work histories, and how these necessarily serve as filters through which you perceive reality. I, on the other hand, am somehow blessed with cosmic objectivity and was somehow born unfettered in this regard and unburdened by all the cognitive, emotional, and cultural filters that clog you up. My eyes are amazingly somehow more like clear panes of glass, allowing me access to native reality in such a way that it yields cosmically objective viewpoints. How excellent for me that I was somehow born and blessed with such a gift. I do this at a workshop. A guy gets up in the back of the room and says, my brother, finally someone who understands me. I thought I was alone. The burden of this gift. The only one here with any sense of objectivity. Oh my God. Everybody is interpreting. No exceptions ever. One of my teachers said it this way. He said, Chalmers, never forget, everything that is said by someone. Think about it. An individual human being who was born somewhere, who was born in some culture, in some time period somewhere, raised by other individual human beings, each of whom had standards, beliefs, moods, values, practices, experience, of course, like all of us, exactly like all of us. But here is the consequence, and we know this. If you do not see yourself as doing this now, making up explanations, and you couple that with not producing some important result that you say you want, well, then the option for you of authoring a more powerful interpretation, it'll never occur to you. It'll be off your radar, because if you don't think you're doing it now, there's nothing to update. And what you have effectively done is take off the table a spectacular set of leverage points for intervening at the level you can make a real difference, which is you. Folks, is this not what we do as coaches? Try to help the client live with that separation? Try to help the client adopt, latch onto a different and in our eyes more powerful explanation, because we can see if they did that, it would lead them to this action and not this one, and this result and not this one, and this is the result they've declared they want. And it's amazing how clearly we can see this about other people. This creative and generative energy that we call language. We are, each of us, swimming in an ocean of stories, interpretations, explanations, and beliefs, all of which live in language, and the great majority of which we have long since forgotten that we authored. Some of these stories, interpretations, explanations, and beliefs absolutely do not take us today and will not take us tomorrow where we say we want to go. But because we have forgotten that we are the author, we've also forgotten that we have the authority and the ability to change them, update them, transcend them, and let them go. We have forgotten. Do your explanations have anything to do with your moods? Huge. And back to the big I, guess what? Many, if not most of us, are horrible observers of our own moods. We don't even see them as moods. We see them as the way things are. It was taught to me this way. If you do not see yourself as having moods, you don't have them, they have you. And they will color your interpretations and you'll never see it. Just wonder why the good stuff never happens. In many ways, my wife is a better observer of my mood than I am. She said, Chalmers, why are you in that mood? You know my response half the time? What mood? I'm not being pessimistic, I'm being realistic, like it really is, unburdened by all those filters that have you clogged up. I'm just a conduit for native reality streaming through. I'm just reporting out. I used to think unless I was on the ceiling manic or on the floor in a puddle of depression, that I was basically objective. In my coach training, I got a term introduced to me that I have never forgotten. He said, we don't have objectivity. We have objectivity in parentheses. You with me? We have objectivity in parentheses. We have it. Our clients have it. The reason our explanations are so dramatically impacted by our moods is because of another discovery. Each of us can be understood. This is me, this is you, this is your clients, this is my clients, as a walking, talking bundle of congruency among our language, our moods and emotions, and our physical bodies. And folks, any one of these can be the leverage point for shifting the whole thing. You with me? Who here has ever felt better, mood, after exercise? Body. But what if you waited until you felt better before you exercised? You may not get off the couch. And when you exercise and feel better, up to the language, do you not interpret the same flat tire or offhand comment differently? Yes, this is us. This is us. Who's ever used music to either shift your mood or keep it the same? Does it work? Yes, it works. And if you shift your mood with music, if your body was hooked up to machines, would they not show physiological changes? Of course. Folks, do something for me. Stay seated, but I'd like you to slump in your chairs, look at the ground beneath your feet if you can, and hang your arms, roll your shoulders forward. So as you're slumped over, looking at the ground, please repeat after me. I'm so enthusiastic and ambitious about my possibilities. I have possibilities beyond my wildest dreams. Okay, sit up, sit up. Why the giggle? Is that ridiculously incongruent? What would have rolled off the tongue easily down there? No, never mind. All right, first, maybe when Grandma said sit up straight, she was onto something. How many of you guys think the way that you carry yourself physically for a lifetime has any impact on your predominant mood? Any impact on your predominant way of seeing things? Folks, to become a better observer of yourself and to help your clients become a more powerful observer of themselves, more powerful observer in your internal and external conversations, a more powerful observer of your moods and emotions, and a more powerful observer of how you carry yourself through time and space. How long does it take to establish a new habit? There's something out there. There's research, right? 21, 28 days, something like this. Folks, this is what I think is going on. Any of these three can be your starting point. And if you keep it up for 21 or 28 days, guess what? You have actual change. You have a shift. If you don't, the old coherence snaps back into place and nothing really has happened. Another distinction I want to share with you. We are unique observers. If we took a tour of this hotel right now, all of us in a clump, and we come back in the room and ask Carol, she's our guide, and says, what did you notice on the tour? How many different answers is she going to get? How many people went? Did one of us get it right and everyone else miss it? We are unique observers. Folks, I emphasize this because I want to dispel today and help you to dispel with your clients the grand illusion. You know what the grand illusion is? That everybody sees things like you do. They do not, and they cannot. They are a unique observer. The problem with the grand illusion is this. If you operate with the grand illusion in place, what is right below the surface, ready to come out, is ascribing ill intentions. Look, you saw that. You were there. You have eyes. I have eyes. I know you saw that. And now we're at cross purposes. So what else could it be except you have bad intentions? But in reality, they didn't see what you saw. Having nothing to do with your retina. They didn't infer what you inferred. They didn't deduce what you deduced. They didn't assume what you assumed, all of which happens in language. And we use the visual metaphors. That's okay, right? Different observer. Don't see it that way. I invite you to operate without the grand illusion and to help your clients see the starting point for everything is you have a room full of people with you who are not clones of you. When you're with the most important person of your life, guess what? Not you. The starting point for every relationship, for every meeting, for every project team, everyone is a unique observer. Period. As the starting point. As the starting point. I want to offer it this way. We are unique observers. Are you, however, the same observer you were when you were 12 years old? I'm not. I used to think people that hit mailboxes with baseball bats were pranksters. Now I think they should be punished by death. I'm kidding, kind of. I was a rural American. You lose 3 mailboxes in 6 months, it changes your perspective. So guys, I'm not the same observer I used to be. You're not the same observer you used to be. How did that change take place? It's not one morning in 2010 we woke up, was it? It's every moment. Every moment. I invite you to consider the term human being may not be as appropriate as human becoming. I stand before you today and I deny Popeye. What's Popeye's slogan? I am what I am, and that's all that I am. Well, I am not who I used to be, and neither are you. How many of you know people who think they're Popeye and it limits them? It limits them. Folks, I do not know the truth, capital T truth there. Are we really, as human beings, basically fixed and permanent, and life is an ongoing process of trying to discover who I really objectively am? Or if we are fundamentally, ongoingly creating, evolving, changing, learning, and life is not so much a process of discovering anything, but creating something. At some level, the answer to that question is above my pay grade. I don't know. But I do know in times of change, I like my interpretation better than Popeye's. I like the interpretation that says I can flex the big I can become a more powerful observer of myself, I can declare myself a beginner at something, I can acquire some new distinctions, I can get some feedback, I can learn, I can grow, I can change. And I have no idea what the capital T truth is. But I do know that our interpretation in this area matters. It matters for us and for our clients. Fundamental distinction was taught to me, discovered in the world of coaching. You guys know this. Listening is not the same as hearing. Now, right out of the gate, one of these is biological, one of these is not. Hearing, I'm saying a little bone vibrates by an eardrum, physics, sound waves, how our bodies are. Listening is active interpretation. And we know this. Human beings do not communicate We do not communicate with a direct brain-to-brain data link. Human communication is all about interpretation. I have an engineering background. You know what I was taught about communication? You got your transmitter, you got your receiver, and you got your signal. And we can say communication has been effective if the receiver can replicate the signal 100%. Is that still not working for technology, right? That works for radio, it works for TV. It's horrible for us because it says nothing about meaning. Human beings are apparently addicted to meaning. Have you noticed? We are. Listening. Who here has ever had the experience of forgetting someone's name? Let's up the ante. How about forgetting their name 5 seconds after you meet them? I'm talking as you're drawing your hand back from the you have literally just ungrasped the hand, and you have the sickening realization that you do not know, and you look frantically for the name tag. It's not there. So folks, that's the event. What's the explanation? Here's my favorite explanation of that event. Anytime two people are talking, we have 3 conversations happening at the same time. One of them is the public conversation. She says, I say, she says, I say. We can record it, we can play it back. What are the other 2 conversations? Folks, and when I forget your name that fast, I'm listening to the wrong conversation. I'm listening to the, hey, that's Jim from shipping, or I'm getting pretty hungry, or man, I wish LSU to beat Alabama, or something, but I'm not listening to you. So guys, for yourself and your clients, I invite you to treat listening as a sport, as a competency, not as a character attribute. Anybody here golf? Golfers in the room? Okay, in golf, there's a notion called a swing thought, is there not? A little thing you say to yourself like head down or tempo, not speed, or something to hopefully center you in the shot and be successful. I invite you to have a swing thought for all introductions and all important conversations. So as you're approaching the person, not the tee box, you say to yourself, quiet, or be here. Or Aunt Doris, right? Whatever works for you to get you out of this conversation and into this one. With practice, you can get better at this. Without practice, you cannot. Tee it up as a thing. Declare yourself a beginner and simply begin working on it. Folks, listening is not passive receipt of objective information. There are modes of listening. How about this mode of listening? Listening with the intent to reply versus listening with the intent to understand. Same or different? Radically different. If I'm listening with the intent to reply, if you're saying something, sir, as you're talking, I'm thinking, as soon as he shuts up, I'm going to say this excellent thing because I know where he's going with this. This is while you're talking. Does that influence how I interpret? Yes. Guys, another mode of listening. Listening to make wrong. Y'all know the type? This is when the listener already knows a thing or two about the topic and is now poised and ready to pounce on the speaker and make the speaker wrong about item A, B. If a person listens to make wrong, does that influence how he or she interprets? Huge. And over time, if a person listens to make wrong, he or she almost always gets to achieve full jerkhood in the world. Do they not? They get to show up as a jerk for all the other non-hermits who get to witness that. We speak ourselves into the world, and people who listen to make wrong speak jerk into the world. Listening is dramatically impacted by our moods, is it not? And folks, you and your clients and me and my clients, we are all 100% responsible for how we listen. We are making it up. We are the sole author of our interpretations. And we are partially responsible for how we get listened. You guys with me? Today, I can't force you to interpret me a certain way. I can't force that. I can influence it. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it, your tone, your mood, your body language. All this, of course, influences. But I can't force it. I invite you to have, I want to check your listening. I want to check my listening in your toolkit. And folks, when you say I want to check your listening to somebody, you're not accusing them of not paying attention. It's not an accusatory vibe. The vibe is, you are a unique observer who's not me. You are interpreting me, and you can't not interpret me. And given that, I want to check our interpretations. That's the come from. We are already in relationship, are we not? We are always and already in some community of other human beings. And those of us who get paid to have effective conversations, listening is at least half the story. How many of you have ever been in a conversation and you felt genuinely listened to? I mean, genuinely listened. We remember these because they're not that common. Here's my claim. If you were ever on the receiving side of that, you felt listened to, that other person had somehow figured out how to quiet Mark Twain. They were not, man, these shoes are so tight, or I'm getting real hungry. They were not doing that. They somehow figured out a way to get out of this conversation and in it with you. Another discovery in the world of coaching, the power of being present. Being present has nothing to do with where your feet are. You with me? It's a metaphor. Being present has to do, at least in one way of looking at it, with your capacity to be not in this conversation, but fully with this other person. Let me ask it this way. Who here has ever tried a meditative practice of any sort? When you first start, easy or hard? Who here has ever had an unsolicited thought? And of course, when you purposely try to be quiet upstairs, you get to notice that. But here's what's part of my experience over the past 10 years that was not so prevalent for me before. I now believe, I'm a language guy. Language and the Pursuit of Happiness is the book. A lot of my leadership courses are entitled Leadership Conversations and Results. I'm all about language. I now believe this. Part of being mentally healthy and balanced in life, I think, includes periodic and regular periods of getting out of language, of giving it a rest. And I'd like you to think in terms of cycles, in terms of rhythms, in terms of seasons, heartbeats. You with me? Breaths. There's a time to go, push, make the world happen, go. And there's a time to give it a rest. and dwell. And there's a time to go and push. How many of you have introduced quietness, some way, shape, or form, into your coaching work? Invited your clients to honor all three of these circles. Because when you quiet Mark Twain on the language side, and if you get kind of good at that, what do you get to be mood-wise? You get to be peaceful. And peace is a foreign mood space. Foreign meaning not touched by very many people. I believe we can find this quiet time a number of ways. We can do it obviously in sitting meditation. Anybody here do yoga? Anybody here like to run? Like to ride a bike? Folks, I know people that find the quiet time on skis. They find it when they run. They find it in yoga. They find it washing dishes. They find it walking on the beach. I'm a language guy, but I don't want to leave this topic without pointing to this. I now believe there is a different type of power available to us by periodically giving it a rest and accessing something else. Accessing something else. Because if you're always running, you miss the quiet stuff. And I think physiologically, there's pretty proven evidence, right, that by being quiet upstairs, those three circles are indeed connected. Are indeed connected. We have beliefs, not just in church. Y'all clear? Not just spirituality, not just religion. How many of you in coaching, part of your job is to help your client move past unpowerful beliefs? Stories that they've made up about who they are and who they're not, that they don't think they're the author of. How many of you have ever had this in your coaching practice? You get to a point where you help the client surface a belief that they never knew they had. But because they keep doing what they keep doing, this was there. This was there. Folks, we have beliefs about men, we have beliefs about women, we have beliefs about money, we have beliefs about cars, we have beliefs about ourselves, we have beliefs about beliefs. We do. When we form a belief, do we ever update it? You with me? Really, it's the difference between having a belief and being your belief. What do you think some of the prime barriers to people updating beliefs might be? In your coaching work, in your own life. What do you think some of the barriers to updating beliefs might be?
Unawareness they have it.
This is my favorite barrier, unawareness they have it. For me, the number one barrier to people updating beliefs is they don't see them as beliefs in the first place. I'm just objective. I'm just a conduit for native reality. We don't see it as a belief in the first place. Here's another barrier. Here's a story. A guy was divorced in his mid-40s. Went to a coach. So you know what? I've been divorced for 5 years. I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. I'm tired of this dating scene. I'm ready for a monogamous, committed relationship with a woman. I haven't been clear about much in my life, but this I'm clear about. And the coach said, man, this is fantastic. This is fantastic. Well, let's begin. He said, what are some of your beliefs about women? Well, the first thing he said was, well, you can't trust them. Question. Is his belief that you can't trust women going to lead to the result he says he wants, which is a monogamous relationship? No. She's going to be 2 minutes late from going to the store to get a gallon of milk. He's going to be at the door, I told you I couldn't trust you. And their relationship will start going down a pathway it does not have to go down, but it does. But it does. Another story. There's a guy who everybody who knows him knows he detests women drivers. He even uses that term, women drivers. They're incompetent, always putting on their makeup. Driving's a sport. They're not coordinated enough to be driving. Women drivers. He gets behind, in a busy city, a minivan, driving hesitatingly, haltingly. He's like, oh, stupid women drivers, women. He tries to pass, the car pulls out in front, he can't pass. He's fuming, women drivers, ta-ta-ta, ta-ta-ta. The car pulls over, he finally passes, zooms by, looks over to the right, and lo and behold, It's a man. Perfect spot, right? Here's an opportunity for him to update his belief. But instead he says, no, that guy drives like a woman. Right? We know this. We listen, we observe so as to make ourselves and our beliefs right. We love to be right. And some of us are willing to give up a lot to be right. It was taught to me this way: you can be right or in relationship, but not both. Anybody here married? Have you learned this one? I was with a group, a guy, we talked about being right, about relationship. He said, it's just now hitting me. He said, I'm still right, but now I just only have half my stuff. We get to choose. We get to choose. I'm not saying don't have any standards, right? What we're saying is, how important is it for you to be right, and in what areas? And to be able to have your eyes open as you do that dance. As you do that dance. We started today with questions. And I want to leave you with a couple questions that I'd like you to think about as individuals and as coaches. What's the difference between these two questions? What's the difference between the question, who are you, versus who do you say you are? Not 100%. 99%, however, of my longer-term deep coaching clients, 99% we get here. I invite you to consider this for yourself. What do you say is the difference between these two questions? What possibilities for coaching might open up by having this on the table? With me? In the first person, what's the difference in the question, who am I versus who do I say I am? Folks, I invite you, I challenge you to bring these questions into your life as an individual and as a coach. I invite you to be a more powerful, more competent observer of yourself and what you're up to in language, and to leave here today with full awareness and acceptance of your role as the author of your life. Thank you very much. Well, thank you.
Thanks so much, Chalmers. Have a seat in my little coaching salon here.
Thank you.
So I have some questions for you. Here's a great one to start with. What are some of the most powerful questions you have ever asked or been asked?
These last two, for me, are the most powerful for this reason. If you couple that second question with the notion that language creates and generates, and with the notion that we are human becomings, we're not human beings, changes in how you answer that question over the course of your life, to me, are the process of a human becoming. You with me? These three circles can be understood to be our way of being. And if you change the way you answer the question, who do you say you are, we're not talking about doing anything or having anything. We're talking about at the level of being. And to me, this is for myself, right? The way I answer these questions, who do I say I am? This is not an other person conversation for me. This is for me, right? Who do I say I am? I forgot where I heard this question, but there's a powerful question, and it's the notion that every single time an event occurs, to ask yourself this question, who am I in relation to that? Who am I in relation to the spilled milk? Who am I in relation to the argument? Who am I in relation to the car wreck? Who am I in relation to the F? Who am I? Who am I? And to me, this question, coupled with the interpretation that we speak ourselves into the world, and that language is fundamentally a creative, generative thing, I think it places us in the driver's seat. Who's driving the bus? Right? How purposeful and how conscious do you want to be about your life? And to me, that's what that second question at least brings into possibility. The implication to me of the first question is that there's some objective me, and I have to just simply go find it and then report back. And the second question is just far more creative.
This is still in keeping with this. Someone asked, can you give us some suggestions on how to stop the idea of event equals experience?
Event equals explanation.
Explanation, yes. Event equals explanation.
You know, we know coaching is at least as much an art as a science, is it not? And so, as you said that, where I was thinking is, how can we create a space where we don't make the other person wrong? Right, where we simply allow them to share their perspective, their interpretation, as an interpretation. In terms of techniques for moving this way, I like to think, is it possible that somebody else could have seen that differently? In theory. I know you're right, but is it possible that somebody else might have interpreted that same thing differently? But your tone and your mood in doing that is major. What's the difference in this question? Help me understand how you got there. Help me understand your thought process, as opposed to, why do you think that way? Which of these sounds more inviting? You ask me, why do you think that way? I go, eh. But help me understand, how did you go from observation to belief in such a different way that I went from observation to belief? What did you infer or deduce or assume that I obviously didn't, because I thought I was there and I thought I saw the same thing, but now I'm sitting here with the very... But we know this, right? Your mood is everything. Your mood in those moments, to not make them wrong, to simply have a mood of inquiry, a mood of curiosity, a mood of acceptance.
You know, Brene talked this morning about how different leaders have reacted to her work, and she told the story about the female leader being closed initially. I'm wondering what you notice about different types of leaders and how they respond to your work.
I've learned not to take jobs when the leader says, what I need you to do is come in here and fix my people. The basic problem is I got a bunch of terrible people. I need you to come in here and wave some dust, do something. But you got to fix them because it's just terrible. Are you or are you not part of this dance? And so, number one, leaders that do not see themselves as part of the organization, I don't ever get a chance to work for. My experience is one of the most powerful distinctions in my work in organizations is helping them see, and they see this pretty quickly, that their organization is a network of commitments. Their organization is a bunch of human beings making and managing promises. And I talk a lot about effective requests and valid responses and responsible complaints versus complaining and a culture of commitment. And some of the best results I've gotten organizationally are with leaders that understand that basic framework, that the company, if you see the company as a network of commitments, there are certain avenues for intervening that are really effective. They also see that they are creating the culture out of the conversations they require and the conversations they prohibit, and a third giant category of conversations called missing conversations. I've done this work enough now. I've heard from enough people over the years. They write the word missing conversations and a question mark on a flip chart, and they convene a conversation of their direct reports, and good things happen. You or your client doesn't have to be the sole generator of those. That handle, missing conversations, for many leaders is a friendly enough handle that they get it. But are there conversations you could be or should be requiring given the results you say you want? Are there conversations you could be or should be prohibiting given the results you say you want? And are there simply missing conversations? These three categories, the leaders that I've had the most success with, they see value in that. They understand that they are indeed creating something called culture. They understand that culture does eat strategy for breakfast. And they understand that part of their jobs is to be the steward and the shaper of the culture. I mean, culture matters. Try having a brainstorming conversation around a table of deeply resentful people. It matters. The same acceptance of value. And it was really after emotional intelligence, after the bottom line impact of emotional quotient was demonstrated, that the door opened up for people like us. Is that not your experience, right? That those two books created a different space in terms of what it means to be successful in organizations. I think we are continuing to move in this direction. There is a greater and greater level of acceptance. The soft stuff is the hard stuff, right? Our work, at least in the area of leadership development, we're working in the area, are we not, of conversational, relational, and emotional competencies. That's what we're doing, right? These conversational, relational, and emotional competencies are being accepted as more important and more valuable, especially for people who get paid to have effective conversations. And so I think we're moving toward greater and greater acceptance. I think outside the military, I think leadership has gone already from command and control to inspire and enroll. That shift has taken place. Not to say there aren't very difficult decisions, not that some of them don't have to be made by ourselves. All that's still true. But there's a change. There's a change. More and more organizations are working in cross-functional teams, right? A collaborative work environment is not the exception anymore. It's the norm. And a different sort of participative leader, I think, is part of the reason. But I look back to 7 Habits and Emotional Intelligence as the real door openers for introducing the possibility for us to do this work in organizations.
No, you use the term door opener. We talk as coaches a lot about how do we talk about coaching? How do we have this conversation, particularly in organizations where the leaders may not have bought into coaching? So I'm curious about your experience. How do you effectively introduce the language, the topic of coaching?
Most of my coaching comes from leadership team engagements, right, where I have a team of people with me, and as part of that, there'll either be some built into the engagement, some structured coaching time, or impromptu, a guy or lady will say, you know what, I think I need to have a conversation with you, and we'll create something. But as you think about sports, right, I mean, the best athletes in the world, people at their peak, have coaches. At their peak, at the prime of their career, they have coaches. One of the ways it was taught to me is this. First and foremost, coaches make observations. We observe. Again, if you golf, nobody can see your own backswing. It's a blind spot. Everybody has blind spots. And to me, coaching is for the purpose of helping us navigate outside of our blind spots. Guys, think of it. There's no such thing as a mistake in the present tense. Now, 1 second later, 1 year later, yeah, huge mistake, but not in the moment. In the moment, I and your clients and you, we're doing what we think is best, given how we see things. So coaching, I think, the value of it is to provide another perspective and to help us see blind spots, right? To help us navigate around bumps in the road that we don't see, And I've used the analogy of sports coaches, right? The people at the peak of their careers, I notice, are still engaging coaches for the purpose of another perspective. You know, if you hold the ball this way, it may not go out of bounds every time. Really, right? I notice you holding it this way. Have you tried holding it this way? Have you tried this conversation, not that one? Have you tried walking a little bit more upright? And just checked it out for a day. You with me? So we make observations and we make offers. We don't have the answer. We ask questions. But we do make offers. We make offers. I offer. I invite.
What do you notice about how your work is interpreted or received or engaged with people who are not native English speakers?
I don't have a lot of first-hand experience with it, although I do know the training directly based on this, the SWORD training that I'm very fortunate to be working on with some of the Georgetown folks, has been delivered in the UK and in Israel. And I don't think there's that big of a difference. I mean, there's obviously a language difference, but I think everybody lives in language. Everybody has Mark Twain. Everybody is making up stories, holding them to be the truth, and forgetting that they made them up. They're just doing it in a different language. I think there's something universal here. I really think that as we look at what language is, I think it transcends different languages. Living in language, I think, is a fundamental part of being human. And I think becoming a better observer of it, by definition, can serve us. And by framing it, yes, everybody describes. Language does describe. But that's not all that it does. And I think the same thing that it happens in the English language, I think, occurs in every language.
No, I have some close friends in New Zealand, and the woman is an NLP trained coach, as I am, so we're all into language. Sure. And her husband, who lived here in the States, did a lot of management consulting, said that even though we both speak English, we notice that the Americans think very differently in business. They have a different mindset, a different way of interpreting and processing. And
the same words.
Yeah, the same words,
Yes,
and just a whole different way of thinking. So
I think you're right. I think you're right. As we think about multicultural organizations, as we think about the difficulty of just doing anything anyway, introducing different cultural understandings, it's challenging. It's challenging. No doubt.
what are your practices for periodically getting out of language?
I like to run, and I like to run with no music. I have some meditation tapes. There's a company called HemiSync and HoloSync, and these are, I don't know exactly what they are, but it's a dissonant, at least the one I like. It's got some gongs, very slight, soft gongs, and rain. And my understanding is it's doing something at the level of the brain. And so it's apparently, with these three circles, it's apparently some biologically developed way of helping you achieve a meditative state. And so I like to run with that. It's almost all the time, that's what I do when I run. Just be quiet.
And you mentioned earlier coaching some of your clients to get into that non-language space. What are some of the ways you coach them to do that?
Almost everybody that I coach is aware of something called meditation, right? It's in the vernacular enough that people understand it. And I just invite them to consider, have you ever considered it? Is it possible, and we sometimes do stuff together, right? Just sit and breathe and close your eyes and just relax. There are resources like Crazy, of course, right? There's a lot of different schools of thought and approaches. I'm certainly not an expert, right? I'm not an expert. I know what works for me. I don't think you have to get too complicated with it, but I just invite them to consider, and we at least talk about it and sometimes do a 5-minute as we're sitting there. Let's just be quiet and let's just sit for a little while. And guys, we know this as a coach, getting comfortable not just with your silence, but getting comfortable with their silence is key. Asking a question and not rescuing them, right? Letting them. But the whole question of silence for me, the past 10 years has been when I was more introduced to meditation and more practicing. more practicing, more awareness. More people I know seem to be doing it, and it just became more prevalent for me.
So here's a big one. Speak about how to best serve the habitual negative thinker.
The whole topic of moods and emotions is a powerful, powerful topic. It was taught to me this way. You are not responsible for the mood you wake up in, but you're responsible for staying there. Right? I didn't produce the mood, I just woke up in it. But I am responsible for staying there. For some people, I think what happens is they have a really negative experience. Right? They lose an important relationship, or they lose an important client, or something happens. If it's a coaching situation, I like to have a conversation about moods and talk about the relationship, the conversations that we live in, because we know this. It's not just that the mood we are in influences our thoughts and our words, which it does. Also, our thoughts and our words influence the mood. So sometimes just helping folks adopt and practice a new statement, a new belief, even if you don't believe it. There's a wonderful TED Talk. The lady's name is Amy Cuddy, I think her name. It's not fake it till you make it. It's fake it till you become it. That's a powerful thing. If you keep it up long enough, a lot of people, in my experience, we give our moods too much weight. If I did this, I'd be not true to myself. You know where I'm going? The whole notion that I give the mood so much significance, so much heaviness, and I can't operate out of it because it's just the way it is right now. I guess I'll just have to be here. Otherwise, I'm not being true to myself. Maybe the other interpretation is, can you do something physically to help you? Take a walk. I don't feel like taking a walk. Well, that's precisely why maybe you should take a walk. Let's use the inherent power of these three circles. Right? So to me, when I think about the mood circle, I think about the other two. Right? Can we do something with the other two? One way to intervene directly on the mood is with music. Absolutely, positively, and get somebody to dance. I mean it. The Newfield Network was big in dancing. Right? Big in dancing. And get up. Move. I don't feel like, well, that doesn't matter. We're getting up. You put on some White Snake and, right? You know, put on some Bob Marley, whatever it is, right? Let's move. But moods are tough. Moods are tough. There's a word I learned. It's a powerful word. It's called carefrontation. Right? Carefrontation is a powerful word. I care enough about you to step out of my comfort zone and enter into a conversation with you that I don't know where it's going to go. I care enough about you that I'm willing to have sweaty palms and a pounding heart. Right? I care more about you than staying in my own comfort zone. If you're a friend and I see you negative, if you're my spouse and I see you negative, I believe if you want to serve people in this domain, you have to have carefrontation. I invite you to adopt the word carefrontation for yourself as an individual. I invite you to share the word with your clients. It's a wonderful context word, is it not? Can we have carefrontation as the context of our relationship? And I think if I'm working with someone who's negative, I'm going to need a pretty good dose of carefrontation to serve them.
We've been talking about language in adults. What have you noticed and learned about language with children and the transition and changes as they grow up?
Well, number one, my kids are 22, 20, and 17, so I'm just holding on. I'm just doing the best I can as a parent, as many of us do.
And they were younger when you started developing the book.
They were. I think in some sense kids have less to unlearn. Somebody mentioned, right, a prerequisite to learning is being willing to unlearn. In some sense, I think kids This may be easier for them because they haven't formed terminal certainty with which they're holding stuff like I did. This is not rocket science. I mean, I've done some work, pro bono stuff at high schools, and so this, just what we talk about with them. I think they get it. I think they get it. As a parent, our intent is to help our kids be all that they can be, right? And help them become aware that their choices have consequences, and help them be aware that they are living in interpretations. And some of these interpretations, if you keep living in it, you say you want X, I'm here to help you see that if you keep, you're not going there. It's not that it's wrong, it's just not going there. And I guess, making it not about right and wrong, making it about what works or what doesn't work given where you say you want to go. But in a nutshell, I don't think this is too complicated for kids. I think in many ways they have less to unlearn than we do. And I can't say I've been this tremendous expert with my own kids because I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can to be a good dad and a good husband and a good parent. But those of you with kids this age and a little younger, I mean, it's a challenge.
There's so many different generations in the workplace now. What comes up with language in corporations that you engage with different generations and styles?
One immediate difference is in who needs feedback. The greatest generation, guess what? Does not need feedback. I know I'm doing a good job. Leave me alone. I don't need that. I'm already doing the work. You guys know this? I mean, folks in their 60s, 70s for sure, to give them feedback is to piss them off, right? Younger people, guess what? Whole different gang. Many of you may have much more experience than I do with 22, 23, 25, 28-year-old people in the workforce. My understanding is, from a lot of people I do work with, is they need it and they want it. And they want a lot of it. And they want specific. It was taught to me this way: if you're doing feedback, SST, sincere, specific, and timely. Right? Be sincere, be specific, and be timely. So a key difference to me is the entire realm of performance management. Right? How do we manage performance with older folks and younger folks? And there's clear differences between some of the older guys and certainly the younger guys.
And last question, I think, which happens to be on Georgetown letterhead here, is what can you share about the SOAR model and how we can apply that to our coaching?
What the model turned into was, as we invented a 12-month program to bring these distinctions into the workplace, it became a 12-module, 10-module, whatever, long-term program for culture change. At the leadership level, introducing these distinctions, helping leaders see organizations are indeed networks of commitments. Acquiring new distinctions, getting a shared vocabulary, makes a huge difference in coordinating action together. And so it's the best clients that I've had, long-term clients where this work has been very, very well received and very successful. Overtly, the CEOs have said, we are here, yes, to gain business-wise, of course. But part of this journey is also for you to benefit as a human being. And I tell you what, you get a client like that, you can do some stuff, right? They are overtly acknowledging the clear business value of this, but the value of people for you as a human being, to strengthen your relationships outside of work, to help with your emotional well-being. Folks, this body of learning is the most powerful body of learning I have ever experienced in my life, and there's not a close second. The power of this, to me, it's powerful because I believe it's one level underneath fierce conversations. It's one level underneath crucial conversations. It's one level underneath 7 habits. We're not talking about effective communication. We're talking about a different way of understanding what language is. And that's different. And so to me, the value of it is all about the big I, helping people be more aware, more conscious, about how they're wielding and the results they're creating with this tool. Because we are, and this is glaringly obvious in organizations, we're creating ongoingly two types of results, objective and subjective. Objective results are effectiveness, efficiency, profitability, performance. And subjective results are culture, mood, environment, atmosphere. But you can show those two types of big results are absolutely impacted by this work and are absolutely interconnected. You can shift the culture by paying attention to how you coordinate action. You can use the way you make and manage promises itself as a culture creating tool. And that's powerful.
Chalmers, thank you for this conversation.
Thank you, guys.
You're awesome.
Thank you.
Well, guys, it's 5 o'clock. I promised you this morning when we started that we were going to make this our biggest and best Capital Coaches Conference yet. On the enthusiasm meter, how we done? Thanks, everybody. It's been a lot of fun. We're not through yet. We're going to convene outside for our cocktail celebration, where Chalmers will be will be signing the books that are in your packet. They're already sold. They're already yours. And I would remind you to bring your card that you had stamped